Head crusher. A metal device was placed around the head with a screw mechanism that slowly tightened, causing intense pain. First, the teeth would break. Then the eyes would pop out of their sockets and eventually, the skull would be crushed. This method often was used to extract confessions or information. Spanish tickler. A metal claw designed to tear flesh from the body. It was slowly and repeatedly scraped across the victim's skin. At first, it might have felt like a rough scratch, but as it dug deeper, it ripped through skin and even bones. Blood eagle. A Viking execution ritual in which the victim's ribs were cut from the spine and pulled outward, resembling an eagle's wings. The lungs were then pulled through the openings, causing a slow and agonizing death. The Heretic's fork, a collar with two metal forks at each end. One set was placed under the chin and the other at the sternum. The device was then tied around the neck, forcing the victim to keep their head upright, causing discomfort and preventing sleep. The victim would either be questioned or left in the device while the forks pierced through their neck and jaw. The rack. A rectangular wooden frame where the victim was forced to lie down, with ropes binding their arms and legs. The ropes were gradually pulled, stretching the body in opposite directions. This method often resulted in dislocated joints, torn ligaments, and broken bones. It was mainly used to extract confessions or information. Brazen bull. A hollow bull crafted from bronze designed to cook the victim alive. The victim would be locked inside while the bull was heated until it was scorching hot, and once trapped inside, they would be left to burn. To make the torture even more terrifying, the bull's design amplified their screams, turning them into horrifying animal-like sounds for everyone to hear. Bamboo torture. A young bamboo was placed under the victim, usually in the anus, and left there to grow. Bamboo grows rapidly, and the plant would push through the body, inducing unbearable agony. Sometimes it was left to grow until it exited from the other side. Strappado. The victim's arms were tied behind their back and then hoisted up by a rope, suspending them in the air by their wrists. This method caused dislocated joints and shoulders. Weights might also be added to increase the suffering. This kind of torture usually did not last more than an hour without rest, as it would otherwise likely result in death. Scolds bridle. A metal cage locked onto a person's head with a gag that pinned down the tongue to silence the wearer. The part inside the mouth was covered with spikes, injuring the tongue if the victim attempted to speak. It was used to punish women accused of nagging or gossiping. Thumbscrew. The victim's thumbs would be placed inside a metal device, and painful pressure would be applied to the thumbs and fingers by tightening the screws. The device would crush the fingers, causing severe pain. It was mainly used to punish thieves and criminals. Iron chair. A chair made of iron covered with sharp spikes on the seat and armrests. The victim would be forced to sit on the chair for hours or even days. The Scavenger's daughter. The Scavenger's daughter was a vice-like device that folded the victim's body into an extremely tight position, compressing it and causing immense suffering. Unlike the rack, which stretched the body, it compressed the victim's body. Lingchi. Also known as death by 1,000 cuts, this was a form of execution in China. The victim's flesh was cut slowly and repeatedly, with small pieces removed each time until the ribcage became visible. This process could go on for hours until the victim finally died. It was intended to cause maximum pain before death. Judas Cradle. A device featuring a pyramid-shaped seat where the victim was forced to sit on top. The tip of the pyramid would pierce the victim's anus and keep them in position for long periods, making it even more agonizing. Sometimes, weights were added to increase the pressure. Chinese water torture. A method in which the victim was tied down while water droplets were repeatedly dropped onto their forehead. Over hours, this caused immense psychological stress, leading to extreme anxiety and, in some cases, madness. Choke pear. A pear-shaped device that was inserted into the mouth or anus. Once inside, it was slowly screwed open, expanding and causing intense pain and severe internal injuries. A heated version made the torture even more unbearable. The most horrifying part was that the device could not be unscrewed once fully expanded. Keelhauling. A form of punishment used on sailors in the 16th century. The victim was dragged beneath the ship's hull from one side to the other, causing their flesh to be torn by sharp barnacles and debris. This process was repeated until the victim died or was left with deep infected wounds. Scaphism. A form of execution used in ancient Persia. The victim was trapped between two human-sized boats or a hollowed-out log. Their body was then covered with honey and milk before being left in a swamp under the sun to attract insects. Over time, the insects would feed on the victim's flesh and lay eggs in their wounds, leading to a slow and agonizing death from infection. The longest recorded survivor suffered through this torture for 17 days. Whirligig. A medieval torture device where the victim was strapped to a rotating wheel and spun around in circles. The continuous motion caused dizziness, confusion, and extreme pain. Boiling, a medieval punishment where the victim was slowly boiled alive in hot liquids like water or oil. Saw torture. The victim was hung upside down, and a large saw was used to cut them in half, starting from the groin. The upside-down position kept them alive longer as blood flow remained in the brain, ensuring they felt every second of the torture. Garrote, a method of strangulation where a metal or wire loop was placed around the victim's neck and tightened, cutting off their ability to breathe. The victim often died slowly from asphyxiation or a crushed neck, designed to be both silent and deadly, making it one of the most chilling execution methods of the time. Flaying, a gruesome form of execution where the victim's skin was removed while they were still alive. Often performed on those accused of treason or sacrilege, the process was slow and excruciating, with the victim enduring intense pain as their skin was stripped off. Tongue ripper, a device used to rip out the victim's tongue, typically as punishment for speaking against the state or committing blasphemy. The device was inserted into the mouth, and with one brutal motion, the tongue would be forcibly cut out, causing horrible pain. Coffin, a form of execution where the victim was sealed inside a coffin and then buried alive. Often used for criminals or those accused of witchcraft, the victim would die from suffocation, starvation, or psychological stress as they were buried alive. Gibbeting, a form of execution where the victim's body, already dead, was displayed in a metal cage or gibbet, often left to decompose in public. The method was meant to serve as a chilling warning to others, with the body remaining exposed for an extended period after death. Wooden horse, a medieval torture device shaped like a horse, where the victim was forced to sit on it. Sharp edges caused severe pain in the genital area. The victim's hands were often bound to prevent escape, and weights were sometimes added to increase the pressure. Rat torture, a method of torture in which a metal bucket was placed on the victim's stomach or chest, trapping a live rat inside. As the bucket was heated, the rat, desperate to escape the rising temperature, would burrow into the victim's flesh, causing intense pain and often severe injuries. Crocodile shears, a terrifying device used to cut off the limbs or genitals of the victim. The shears had heated, serrated edges resembling a crocodile's jaws and were used to punish those who attempted robbery. Breaking wheel, an execution device used to shatter the victim's bones and leave them to die. The victim was tied to a large wheel and beaten until their limbs were broken, and sometimes their body was displayed for public humiliation. Breast ripper, a medieval torture device specifically designed to mutilate the breasts of women. The device had sharp hooks that would tear into the breast tissue. Used on women accused of heresy, adultery, or witchcraft, it was meant to cause extreme pain and humiliation. Victims often died from blood loss or infection. Iron Maiden, a torture device designed to trap and impale the victim inside a metal coffin with spikes. The spikes would pierce the victim's body, causing extreme pain, but typically not killing them immediately. The device was meant to torture the victim, forcing them to a slow death through blood loss and shock,